The pictures that were sent are the tableaux, as Bishop Flagey referred to them in the French term. They are on canvas. One is on wood. They were products of Italy and France and Belgium. There's only one that actually is signed, and that is Van Brie, which I think is the one over my head here. This is the crucifixion. It came from Belgium, and it wasn't the first one to come. In the late 1819 period, before the consecration of the cathedral, there were pictures already arriving here, but Bishop Flagey wasn't very happy with them. He thought they were mediocre, and he said, you know, search for more pictures. They decorate a church, but the other thing they do, and what they did in the medieval times all up to today, is that they illustrate stories from the Bible to remind you about the parables or the reason why they tell the stories in the Bible. Of course, the crucifixion's evident when it reminds you of the mother and Christ on the cross. And some people, including myself, made the mistake of thinking this had hung here from the very first when the church was consecrated, because everything that we read said it had been there from the beginning. But there was about an 8-year difference from the time that the church was consecrated and this crucifixion arrived. Another picture would hang there and described by Bishop Flagey. And you may be wondering how I know any or all of this, but Bishop Flagey wrote many letters during the early years and later. He also had Father David would write letters and other priests, and I gathered most of this information from the letters that they exchanged with each other. So when I say Flagey said this or Father David said that, it's coming from their letters. It's wonderful to have these as a historic asset or a reference, because today, you know, I can't ask him. I might ask him, but I don't get an answer. But the reality here that this church has so many connections with the people who are still here. We talked about the subscription list. Descendants of many of those families are still in this area, not just here in Bardstown, but all of the area that was being served by Bishop Flagey. Their descendants are still here, many of them still going to their Catholic churches, and they have an investment or a piece of this cathedral in their heritage. You see candlesticks here. Some of these may be gifts from Europe. I know Louis Philippe, we hear it talk about, the citizen king. He would be king of France in 1830. He would send candlesticks, and he also sent vestments. Vestments are the chasuble and the stole that are put on priests when they have special masses, special ceremonies. And there are needlepoint sets of vestments that were sent. Things that at that time a lot of people, richer people, nobles and kings and all, would donate things to churches. And we actually were the missions here in America of the European Catholic Church. As you see, everything here looks like it's white, but this is marble. And this marble was all put in the 20th century. There was no marble here in the 1800s or the 19th century. The paneling you see on the side, that was actually put in the 1960s. There was dark paneling here in the early church, but that again was removed, and this paneling that's painted was placed in here. You may wonder why people want to change things, but it's just like redecorating your own house. You may think this is a better look, and in our case here at the cathedral, we have electric lights, which is quite an improvement over the candles that they were using in the 1820s. There was a Christmas visitor here in the 1820s who talked about midnight mass and how the arcs of candles, which would be half circles, in the windows were all that was illuminating the church and how beautiful it was. There would have been candles up here on the altar and around. Again, when you're looking for illumination and you're using a candle, if you've ever tried that at home, you realize you get a very romantic effect, a nice atmosphere, but you don't get much viewing power. You know, you got to be careful where you're stepping and things like that, because the light only spreads out so far. The electric lights we have were put in about 1910. We had electricity in Bardstown, and the globes that you see hanging down are the original globes. And before that, they replaced kerosene chandeliers. And I have a very bad picture of the early kerosene chandeliers. But as you see, they are suspended from the ceiling. And if you've ever had to deal with a kerosene lantern or a chandelier that you had to replace the oil and also the wicks and all, you realize you have to be able to work on them, to clean them up and all. So these chains you see are up in the attic, and they have little, winches, where you turn the handle and raise it up and down. So they can be lowered down to where they could be, the light bulbs changed, and the old kerosene lights could have been cleaned up and more oil put in to be used. Our early ancestors were pretty adept at making things work. And today we think about all the effort involved. We realize that we have it pretty easy when we can flick a switch. Instead of having to raise and lower the chandelier, clean it out, put new wicks in it, new oil, and roll it back up. When you say roll it back up, someone was up in the attic winching it back up, turning the handle to raise it to a certain level. 8 chandeliers here. Up here would have been another set of lights on the altar.